Hello, today is Friday, May 22nd. Welcome to episode 599 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debate shaking up America. I'm NSI Advisory Board member Lester Munson. I'm joined today by senior fellows Jessica Jones and Morgan Vigna. It's the core group, the core three, Superstar Friday, Fun Friday. Of course, we're going to talk about Iran, negotiations between the Trump administration and whoever the heck is running Tehran these days. There has been a little bit of stir out there. Some questions about President Trump's political prospects. There's an election coming up here in the United States for control of Congress in November. Some developments there that may be relevant. There has been a lot of back and forth between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. That's the alliance against Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, perhaps a little upset with President Trump over his negotiating tactics. Morgan, I want to throw this big fat pitch down the middle to you first. What do you think of the diplomacy so far?
Les. Well, look, I mean, I think given the small group here, we can have a back and forth conversation about this today. Bottom line, there is going to be no diplomatic solution in which Iran gets to maintain its nuclear program that is going to be successful, right? There's a fundamental disagreement between Iran and the United States and Israel over Iran keeping its nuclear program. Iranians obviously want to keep it. The United States and Israel want Iran to get rid of it. And ultimately, Iran has demonstrated that it does not respect any pathway for diplomatic solution, as we've seen in previous administrations, any path forward in which it gets rid of its nuclear program. And so ultimately, Israel, that is going to maintain its military operations in one form or another against Iran to ensure that Iran cannot present, a threat to it moving forward. And I think that's, completely understandable. But right now that seems to be at odds with the Trump administration, which, obviously, launched Operation Epic Fury in February, and now is in a very untenable political position when it comes to the midterms coming up. Obviously, the closure with the Straits of Hormuz have caused a lot of strain when it comes to the oil markets and caused oil prices to jack up. I think we're all feeling that. My little hybrid, it took $60 to fill its tank yesterday.
Oh dear.
I know.
Dear.
And so, Americans are feeling this. And as a result of that, it's impossible to untie what we're seeing, the political ramifications of this from what we're seeing take place in the Middle East right now.
Jones, a lot of ways we can go here. Let's talk about Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran. Is he playing a role in all of this right now?
I was about to say, Les, if you don't know Fault Lines listeners, so the way our show works is the host for each episode gets to pick the story. So Les got to pick the story for our Fun Friday today. And when he picked Iran developments, I was like, what Iran developments, right? Like we continue to see the same headlines, at least, there's been no breaks or, breakthroughs when it comes to sanctions, uranium enrichment, the Strait. But the stories that came out this week also weren't great. So there were, reports that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, I'm going to mess up his name as usual, former president of Iran, the Trump administration, Israel, had some potential plans to have him involved in a post-regime. And if folks don't remember from the early, when he was president, he was kind of this reviled, ridiculed figure, super anti-Western, anti-Israel, denied the Holocaust, actually, triggered protests with it, became unpopular within Iran, triggered mass protests within Iran. And so the fact that the Trump administration potentially had him, earmarked as the next future leader is just like this wild story. I mean, he was actually ridiculed on SNL. There's a skit about him with Fred Armisen playing him, right? Like this figure. And so like the stories that are coming out, there's also stories about the number of lost of aircraft, 40 plus, the billions of dollars. And I'll put in quotes during the war that's transpired. So it's not great headlines for the Trump administration that have been coming out. And I guess it's not surprising, right? We talked about President Trump meeting Xi last week, and what headlines might we see from that? What breakthroughs? Nothing, right? We were hoping that the president might say something about Iran, put a little pressure to help open up the Strait, support there. we haven't heard anything about that. It's the same with also Russia, Ukraine, right? There's no breakthroughs diplomatically there. And so for a lot of the talk and kind of threats that we see on social media, we haven't seen a lot of actual like resolution or results to date on some of these really big conflicts. And so to Morgan's point, I'm not sure what diplomacy is going to get us at the end of the day when it comes to these super important issues with Iran.
Morgan, it seems to me there's kind of a medium-term game here. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Iran basically can't export its energy resources. At a certain point, it may already be happening. It's going to dramatically impact their ability to pay people and do the basic functions of government. How long before that becomes acute? It could be today. It could be in a month. It could be in 6 months. There is this political question in the United States of the election in November and whether that changes President Trump's behavior. His popularity does seem to be going down by a lot of reports. If you follow the Drudge Report, it's calamitous. If you follow other things, it's maybe a little more balanced. Democrats seem to be pretty unpopular also. So what's your sense of, okay, today we're concerned about, dolphins with lasers perhaps, or Mahmoud Ahmadinejad maybe emerging as the leader again, all of these crazy stories. Aren't we really playing more of a medium-term game here? And we should be thinking about August and the position of Iran and its energy resources then, its financial situation, and whether the Trump administration can kind of sustain this political situation through that.
Well, Les, I'm going to answer this question in kind of a way that you might find dissatisfying. And that is like, we should have thought about this before we launched Epic Fury, right? I think the sense that when Epic Fury was launched, the administration, I think, had the intent of making this like quick and easy, and we'd have a bow tied on it within a matter of weeks. But it's not Venezuela, right? This is a fundamentally different situation, and going into Iran and launching an operation from the air is, as we've seen before, is not something that is going to have a long-term impact necessarily on the regime in Iran. Like, wars in the Middle East have historically been long and bloody and expensive. And while this administration has wanted to go in and deliver quick wins, like I think it was wearing rose-colored glasses when it thought it could put a bow on this pretty quickly. And we've always known that these elections were going to be coming up. History has shown that wars in the Middle East do have an impact on oil prices. So all of this, everything that we're seeing right now could have been predicted. I actually don't see a short or even medium-term solution to this. I mean, I think we're going to ultimately, given Iran's tendency to draw things out as long as possible, we're going to be looking well into next year before we see any potential solution here. It is in Iran's interest to drag this out and make this as painful as for the United States as possible. And in the meantime, you've got Israel trying to figure out how it's going to maintain a sustainable security posture when you have the United States being brought into this sort of diplomatic gamesmanship by a regime that frankly is very good at playing it.
Jones, what do you think? Going into next year?
I was about to say, Les, you question whether the Trump is just holding the course. But at some point, if the strait doesn't open, does Project Freedom come back and we actually really start escorting ships? Because the cost of that is actually high. And I'm not sure that's sustainable until the midterms. But I also think it's a little bit crazy. The Trump administration isn't slowing down, though, right? We just have this. I think what's bigger than what's going on in the Middle East is like the stories around, the DOJ fund with the $1.8 billion, like that's taking up the headlines, not this Middle East thing. So I don't think the administration actually is slowing down, and it doesn't seem that, or maybe because of the massy elections or whatever else is going on. The midterms are there, but like how that factors in, I'm not sure. The president, he set through the term, so maybe he's a little less worried. But yeah, to Morgan's point, I'm not really sure. I don't see how this ends anytime soon if both parties are in just to play the long game right now.
All right, I'm throwing the stake in the ground now.
Okay.
Labor Day this thing is resolved.
26?
Mhm.
Labor Day
Labor
26.
Day 2026, early September, in basically 3 months. This thing
What are you
is.
basing that on, Les? What are you basing that on? Like,
I'm
And what
why
does
basing-
would
end mean?
I'm
What does
basing,
end mean?
basing this on the Iranian regime, whoever it is who's calling the shots now, being completely starved of resources by then and having to cut a deal that they don't necessarily want to do. And I think if the administration can make it to Labor Day, it'll be very effective for the U.S. For the U.S. side, we'll get a lot of what we're looking for here, and that still gives the administration a couple of months to ramp up whatever political operation, which I'm sure they have teed up to do okay in the November election.
Wait,
I
Les,
think
so would you still call
Great.
victory if it ends by Labor Day, but the deal isn't good?
if the deal is no nuclear weapons program, no enriched uranium, and free passage through the Strait of Hormuz, I think that's a huge win for Trump.
All right, my prediction is maybe you see something that maybe Trump claims that there is a deal by Labor Day in which Iran has agreed to some amorphous element of a deal that it frankly has no intention of keeping. So if that's what you call like an end state, then okay.
I agree with Morgan on that one. The idea of a deal.
The idea of a deal that Iran has no intention of
so
honoring.
We'll agree there will be talk of a deal that we can analyze in about 3 months come Labor Day. Folks, our next episode is episode 600. Expect a fabulous arrangement. Please tune in next week. For today, that's a wrap. Thanks to Grace Trice, Claude Jennings, the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Wednesday, May 27th for episode 600 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debate shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check out our channel there for a video of today's episode. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everyone. Enjoy the weather, barbecue something, go on a trip, have a good time, disengage, and we'll see you all next week.